Hi, boys and girls. Okay, this is lesson 3.12. We are going to be taking perimeter and area and we're going to use it to solve word problems. So before we start, I want to talk again about area and perimeter and what they're used for. So remember, area is looking at an array and finding out the amount of space that is inside of that object or that shape. So you're covering amount of surface. Some examples of using area would be if you're laying carpet and you need to know how much carpet would be in a room because it's taking up the inside of the room, not just along the outside. You put carpet on the entire inside of a room. The same would be if you're planting grass and you need to know how much grass seed to buy. You would need to know how much of the area that you're covering grass seed. Is it the amount of space or surface of like a classroom size or of the whole backyard of Lincoln size? How much space are you buying grass seed for? You would need to know the area. Let's think. A sand pit. You have a sand pit. Well, where do you put the sand? Inside of the sand pit. So it's covering amount of surface. You put sand down on the surface of the sandbox. You would have to know the area for that. All right. Even if you think of your classroom, there are tile floors on the floor in your classroom. In order to know how many tiles, you have to know the area. It kind of makes an array. You're going to end up putting the tiles in rows and have a certain number in each row. In order to do that, you have to know the area. The perimeter is the rim, the outside, the perimeter. So you might need to know the perimeter of something if you're building a sand pit, but you need to put wood along the outside of the sand pit. How much wood do you buy? Well, you'd have to know the perimeter, add up all those sides to know how much wood to buy. Or maybe you are taking a ribbon and you're gluing a ribbon on the outside of a picture frame that goes along the whole entire picture frame. Well, how much ribbon do you use? You would have to know the perimeter, the rim of that picture frame. Let's see. Another example of perimeter could be putting up a fence around a yard. So your backyard, and you want to put up a fence that goes around your entire backyard. How much fencing do you need? You'd have to know the perimeter of your backyard to know how much fencing. So today we're looking at story problems. Well, to best solve story problems, you have to know the difference between area and perimeter. So remember, area equals length multiplied by the width. So if you take the length and the width and you multiply those two numbers together, you will get the area. It's just like looking at an array. You're doing multiplication to find out how many squares or dots are inside of that array. That's the area. Area, array. The perimeter is when you're adding up all those sides. You add up the length and the width, the length and the width. You can do that by doing 2 times the width and then 2 times the length, like this. One moment. 2 times the width and 2 times the length, because you have 2 lengths and 2 widths. So you would need to multiply that and then add those totals together. Or you can take the length and the width, add those together, and then multiply it by 2, right? Because you would have 2 lengths and widths added together. So the perimeter goes all the way around. You're adding up all those sides. So let's take some looks at some examples of a story problem. So here it says a rectangular backyard area is 90 square yards. So we know the area, how much surface the backyard is taking up. And it looks like we know the length here as well. The length of the yard is 15 yards. So we know the area is 90 and the length is 15. How do we find out what the width is? So we need to know that area is the length multiplied by the width. So in this case, we would be taking 15 and multiplying it by something to get to 90. They have an S here to stand for the short side. So 15 times what equals 90? We would have to skip count by 15 to know how many times 15 can go into 90. 15 times what equals 90? Well, 15 times 1 is 15, times 2 is 30, times 3 is 45, times 4 is 60, times 5 is 75, and times 6 is 90. I just skip counted by 15, and I did it 6 times. 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. So this smaller side would be 90 yards because 6 times 15 is 90 yards. Now here it says Michael has 20 yards of fencing wire. How much more wire does he need to fence the backyard? Well, we just found out that this shorter side is 6 yards. Okay. Now we're talking about fencing wire. So a fence is going to go around the entire backyard, the entire perimeter. So use what you know about perimeter to calculate the perimeter. All right. So the perimeter would be 15 times 2, which is 30, and 6 times 2, which is 12. So the perimeter is 30 plus 12, which is 42 yards. All right. He has 20 yards of fencing wire. So how much more wire does he need? Well, if he has 20 and he has to get to 42, he needs 22 more yards of fencing. All right. Let's take a look at your student journal. So let's start looking here. Okay, page 114, you need to measure the length in centimeters. So you're actually going to need a ruler for this. You need to measure the length in centimeters and measure the width in centimeters, and then calculate the area and the perimeter. The area being how much pink shaded there is, the perimeter being the black line going all the way around the shape. Now, when you come to these story problems, again, you have to think, what are they asking me? Are they asking me for the area or are they asking me for the perimeter? And that's going to be, sometimes they ask you flat out, what is the area or what is the perimeter? Or like the last problem, they might ask, how much fencing wire do you need? Well, if it's fencing wire, it's going to be the fence along the outside of something. Or it might ask, how much carpet do you need? Well, you know, carpeting would be for the area because it's covering up a whole surface of a room. So definitely use what you know about area and perimeter to help you with some of these story problems. Okay, it looks like these are more specific. They ask exactly what the area is or what the difference in area is or the length of a shorter side if they already give you the area. Use what you know about area and perimeter to help you solve that. Make sure you get rid of any extra information that you don't need. The step ahead is talking about fencing wire to build a rectangular enclosure. He needs 10 yards of wire left over. So how much wire would he need? What are the specific possible side lengths for that enclosure? Draw pictures. That can really help when talking about area and perimeter since it's so visual. All right, boys and girls, definitely draw pictures. Do your work out on a piece of paper. Don't try to manage it all in your head. Think about the difference between area, array, inside of a space, and perimeter, rim, the distance around a space. All right, good luck, boys and girls.